So before I have an entertaining chat with Milo here, there was a few things I actually wanted to talk about, and also there's an announcement. So when Loic asked me to come to LeWeb this year, the theme of real-time, obviously, with my business, which is Datasift, we parse 400 million data items a day in real time. We analyze using natural language processing. We do a whole range of data augmentations. The kind of real-time, faster than real-time theme kind of struck a nerve. And so I picked out a couple of use cases of how we are faster than real-time. So the first is we sell a lot of data into the financial markets. Now, that may sound kind of a bit mad that trading would go on behind what you are all tweeting about, but you are all experts on something, and your opinion is, in aggregate, is useful to someone. So this is a slide around the Facebook IPO and the sentiment towards it. And there's a number of indicators. There's an actual link at the bottom if you actually want to look at the full report, because it's very complex to understand the actual indicators, but it's really worth looking at. But the basic premise is that with all of you and what you feel towards companies, towards topic areas, those signals can be leading indicators of what is about to occur. Because the stock market, let's face it, is actually driven by everyone's desire to buy those shares, to buy the products of those companies. And so if you can look at that, you can look at previous patterns. We store 2.5 years of data from Twitter, and you can backtest the data and then predict what's coming. So that was kind of the first use case. And within that, one of the things we look at the most is kind of inflection, i.e., during most days, there's a certain amount of talk about each company. And what we look for is that data changing from the kind of baseline enough to actually think, should I actually do something about it? So this is kind of just one of our kind of dashboards we supply and the data we supply that shows the kind of how that data is actually changing. So that's where we think you can be faster. And then this one, I really find this interesting in the world of news publishing, that the world of SEO is worth billions, and now 50% of traffic comes from social sites for a certain, it depends on obviously the destination, but there's some sites that have at least 50% of their traffic. And how do you optimize that? So this is just a screenshot of how we approach helping companies optimize their content. Now, what we basically look at is, if you look at 5 news stories, because if it's a big news story, everyone writes about it. So we look at maybe take a cross-section of 5 news stories, and we analyze how everyone is reacting to them. So what keywords are actually standing out, what cross-section of people, where they live, different details about the users, so that then the publisher, and it only applies to certain kind of publishers who are willing to do this, is they can alter their headline, they can alter the content to get the page views. But that applies to any kind of content where you're optimizing it for social sharing rather than just having it indexed within Google. The other thing I wanted to, the actual announcement today is all about Wikipedia. Wikipedia, you wouldn't think of as anything to do with real time, but what we did with Wikipedia is we took a fire hose of data. Now, that's never been done before. You'd be amazed to know that at times there's peaks of like 100 edits per second on Wikipedia. But no one's ever captured that data, structured it in a way that is processable. So what we did, we took all the data, and Datasift now allows you, and it's live today if you want to go and have a look at it. The content is absolutely free. It's Creative Commons content. But you can now filter against that content and look for things changing. You can look so when an article changes, has a name appeared, has a name disappeared. You can track certain subjects. And so it's an amazing resource for researchers, for anyone who actually wants to look at how that content is out there. Now, the real-time part of it was this. This was actually just a hackathon. This is one of our coders thought, what can I do with all this data? And if anyone knows my history, we were the first company in the world to build a news solution on top of Twitter called TweetMeme, still out there running. And so we thought we'd apply the same idea to Wikipedia. And so what Wikistats, which is what I'm announcing, does is look at all of those articles as they're being edited and look for trends within it. And so this top 20 here is the articles that are in the most edits by the number of unique people and how much content is being added and removed. And this is, again, is an example of faster real-time, because things are going on here that don't appear anywhere else on the web. The edits, the inside information of what people are actually putting into Wikipedia. Obviously, there's things where it works the other way around. There's a big news story and it breaks, and then people go and edit the news on Wikipedia. But obviously, given the cross-section, it's an absolute amazing resource. It covers a whole range of categories, and you can actually drill down into the time window as we look at it, to look at the actual real-time feed as it happened over time, to see who was editing and who, were they anonymous editors? Was it, you can literally track any of it. There you go. So that's the announcement. I hope you actually like it and go and have a play with that. Now I'm going to get grilled by Milo on our business as a UK company with a US investor.
I have this totally undeserved reputation. I'm trying to prove that this morning. OK, fine. Well, if you insist. OK, so let's talk about the business.
Yep.
Well, what a lot of people don't know about you, because they've heard about this business, is you started off with something, a little bit of a different product, right?
Yes.
So when first Twitter was kind of exploding and we started to see on blogs and newspapers this retweet button appear, that was you.
Yes.
Now, is that part of the same business as this? Has sort of gradually morphed into a big data business?
Yeah, we like to think that we created this retweet button, and we were the first companies to understand what social sharing is, and it went from 0 buttons to 1.5 billion retweet buttons being displayed every day in the space of 9 months. But that actually got sold, part of that got sold to Twitter. So Twitter obviously now has their own official retweet button. We still run some.
But you did it before they did.
Yes, we did.
And obviously running something like that, you've got a pretty good idea about how to deal with big numbers and big loads of things. So how much funding have you taken to date?
In total now, $15 million.
$15 million. That's from primarily US VCs, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm told that you have some quite strong opinions about European venture capitalists.
I've been on record to say a range of things about my experiences. I've been doing this 5 years now. But I think the deeper question is, why do the European VCs act in a certain way? And not, I say I'm not going to make any broad brush statements, but why did we go to the US to raise our funding? We are an international company. We have a US office now, but we always felt ourselves as international. The product was being used more in the US, and we created a lot of awareness out there. But is it more down to why are not more European entrepreneurs going to the US and raising funds? I mean, I do see a strong trend, I don't know if the audience will agree, of more US VCs coming to the UK because of
Sequoia just did their first one.
Yeah,
here,
the
right?
saturation in the US market, making it much more competitive. We do have fantastic startups here. Yeah. I do think there's, problems in Series A. I think that's one of the struggles, and I think everyone in the industry recognizes there's a struggle to bridge the angel gap to Series A, where, things like Seed Camp and other accelerators have actually meant there is a reasonable amount of angel money out there. You have your opinions on whether it's being well spent, but the struggle is, once you've taken maybe £300,000, you've got to a certain point. The trouble at Series A in Europe is traction is not enough. Revenue is almost guaranteed. It's a generalization again,
right.
But that is a pain point. Whereas in the US, you can work just on showing the numbers, the traction, the idea, the big idea.
Yeah. You're also based outside of London's trendy Shoreditch, which has been called Tech City by the government and Silicon Roundabout by the entrepreneurs. How do you find working? You're in Reading, aren't you?
Yes.
And how do you find that that sort of M4 corridor? Because David Cameron said if Britain has a Silicon Valley, that's probably it. Do you agree?
I do, because if you look at the companies that have exited for the $1 billion plus, they are. A lot of them are in the M4 corridor, and you have that. The one thing we have as an advantage being in the Thames Valley is we have the likes of Oracle, HP, Dell. The list is endless of large companies. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy to perhaps run some of the consumer space startups out there, but in terms of companies and infrastructure and agencies around you, it's actually an amazing place to work. That's not to say that we interact with plenty of London-based startups, but I think the government needs to broadcast that there are other centres of excellence. You've got Cambridge, but the Thames Valley has a lot of amazing startups in it as well.
Sometimes it seems like they're not very joined up, doesn't it? Because you've got Cameron telling the Telegraph that Thames Valley is the Britain's Silicon Valley, and then you've got this stuff going on in East London. Anyway, back to what you do. There's this interesting thing, isn't there? People talk about the madness of crowds. Individually, people are fine, but when they get together in a mob, they act nuts. Well, what you're doing is sort of the opposite, because you're taking this crazy data from millions of people and actually making it meaningful. How do you do that? I mean, if you can explain to somebody who isn't an engineer, how you look at this sort of vast quantity of data, how do you try to sift that down?
Well, I think there's a range of ways that our customers use us to do that. There are companies that already produce data around people's profiles that, like Clout, Peer Index, and others, where you are looking at the influence of that user. Now, it's questionable, which use cases that is interesting. Would you, if you're looking for stock market prices, can you rely on that influence, or would you be more like GLG in the US, which is very much like a research firm, and they look for, they actually do the hand research to find the people. And we work with companies that do that, where they literally will find on Twitter, hand pick 1,000 people who are in certain jobs, and if they're monitoring those, then they're obviously a stronger signal. But there are ways to automate it, and so Clout looks at interesting, the patterns of when you share an item, who does it share to? If it has a very broad reach, are other influential people retweeting you? And there's no point having lots of non-influential people retweeting. You want to see whether that graph effect is actually very strong, and then that effect. So what's your Clout score, Milo?
I don't know. I haven't looked it up. Joe will kill me. I actually have no idea what it is. The other question I want to ask you, you've launched a product using Wikipedia data today.
Yep.
Is Wikipedia data particularly more useful? Have you found that does it, for example, predict events better than Twitter? What's unique about Wikipedia data compared to the other stuff you work with?
Well, it's very early days, because it's very new. I'm actually the most interested in seeing the research potential behind it, because if you talk to any of the firms who do natural language processing, Wikipedia is the #1 resource of a large body of text in many languages. Yep. But no one's been able to look at it as a stream and see what you can get out and analyze the trends. So, we are, as such, a facilitator. We are producing the stream. We can help curate it. That's what we're very good at. But it's actually the engineers in this room, who can literally plug into it, analyze it, see the trends, and actually build businesses out. That's what Datasift is actually a lot about, and we have already generated, we've got probably 100 firms who are startups that have built products on top of us. Yeah. And we want, and commercial products, not just toys, but actually, commercial products. So, I think Wikipedia is going to give it a whole new angle.
Sure. Well, we've all heard how much money Facebook is apparently bringing to the economy, so it sounds like a mark of a successful tech titan of tomorrow that you've got people building on you. I'm glad you got to do your announcement today, and look forward to using the product. Thanks very much,
Thanks,
Nick.
Milo.
Nick Halstead.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Milo. You should stay here because we're going to have you on the next panel, right?
Oh
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Please.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks, Louis.
Thanks very much.